Hi, we're from Bellarmine Chapel, and we're here today to present Brothers and Sisters All, organizing cross-generational collaborations for justice. My name is Tim Severin. I'm the Director of Social Mission for Bellarmine Chapel, and I teach adjunct in the Social Work Department at Xavier University. My preferred pronouns are he, him, and his. Here with me today are...
Hi, my name is Jonathan Hesford. I'm a social mission intern for Bellarmine Chapel and a senior theology major starting a master's next semester in the spring. And my pronouns are he, him, his.
My name is Mercy Torres, and I'm a Bellarmine Chapel social mission intern. I'm a sophomore social work major and a gender and diversity studies minor. And my pronouns are she, her, hers.
So Bellarmine Chapel is the Catholic parish on the campus of Xavier University in Cincinnati, Ohio. Like a lot of Jesuit parishes, we pull from a large geographic area, over 60 zip codes. We have 850 families, and what sort of unites us all is the strong commitment to social mission, to social justice. In that commitment, we've been working over the last couple months to deepen our relationships with Xavier University and the student body. And we've hired our first social mission interns, Mercy and Jonathan, to help us grow in that arena. So our presentation today is really going to focus on what that partnership looks like between young people active in social justice and a parish community. You'll see us go through a few examples and then share some best practices and give you a chance to practice those for yourself.
So to frame our conversation, we are pulling from Pope Francis's new encyclical Fratelli Tutti, subtitled On Fraternity and Social Friendship, which is his third encyclical, just released on just signed October 3rd. And Fratelli Tutti can be translated brothers and sisters all, and it comes from a prayer by St. Francis of Assisi, who Pope Francis obviously draws a lot of inspiration from. And some more background on the encyclical. It was inspired by a partnership, or is inspired in part by a partnership between Grand Imam Ahmad Al-Tayeb in early 2019, where they both pledged a mutual understanding of fraternity and what a world based on social friendship would look like. And this encyclical can really be seen as an application of his previous themes, such as solidarity and culture of encounter, on macro and global scales. So a lot of what he imagines are kind of a new system of global economics and politics, new relations between countries and what the standards and norms are around those. But what we'll be focusing on is sort of the local actions, and Pope Francis is still clear that the local actions contribute to the macro and global scales and are still very important. So this slide is going to talk about the outline of Fratelli Tutti and how each of its chapters are structured. So his first chapter starts by noting the major problems and really the sickness of the modern culture. And he's really clear that the COVID pandemic is indicative of a lot and revealing of a lot other inequalities and problems in the world. And he's clear that going back to the world before COVID isn't an option. And he's trying to lay out a reimagined new global society. And so in his second chapter, he proposes the story of the Good Samaritan as a remedy. And instead of understanding it as an exceptional act of kindness by the Samaritan, it's more showing a moral norm from Jesus's teaching about aiding people in need and how indifference to people on the margins is unacceptable. His third chapter talks about values needed in this vision that he's laying out, and those include social friendship, solidarity, and love and charity. His fourth chapter talks about how those values get put into practice, and specifically he has a section about a local flavor with a universal horizon, and this is a big part of what we'll be focusing on. He envisions that working on the local level still must have a universal mindset and focused on the global problems that plague the world. in the situation that it is. So the 5th chapter, he talks about a better kind of politics. He reimagines systems of international relations. 6th chapter, he talks about how culture plays into this, how individual actions play into this. So a culture of encounter and solidarity, and how that manifests in some similar themes that we've seen from him in the past. The 7th chapter talks about specifically about peacemaking and how a culture of encounter leads to peace. And he notes some interesting adjustments and extensions of Catholic social teaching in relation to war and the death penalty that are noted in the paragraphs on the screen. And then the 8th chapter talks about religion in this development of a new world. So the role that religion plays, that partnership between religions plays, again, drawing back on his theme from partnership with the Grand Imam and his view on how religion can help shape this new world that he thinks is very necessary.
So next, I'm just going to share some quotes from the encyclical that shape our presentation and help with discussion. So the main focus of these quotes is the common good, solidarity, and universal fraternity and social friendship. So I'm just going to share a little bit from each quote. At the same time, though, the local has to be eagerly embraced, for it possesses something that the global does not. It is capable of being leaven, of bringing enrichment and sparking mechanisms of subsidiarity. From the next one, the parable shows us how a community can be rebuilt by men and women who identify with the vulnerable of others, who reject the creation of society of exclusion and act instead as neighbors, lifting up and rehabilitating the fallen for the sake of the common good. Solidarity means much more than engaging sporadic acts of generosity. It means thinking and acting in terms of community. And then just a little bit from the next quotes. Once more, we are being reminded that each new generation must take up the struggles and attainments of past generations. While setting its sights even higher, this is the path. To speak of a culture encounter means that we as people should be passionate about meeting others, seeking points of contact, building bridges, planning a project that includes everyone. Let us arm our children with the weapons of dialogue. Let us teach them to fight the good fight of cultural encounter. So hopefully these quotes just set the tone for our presentation.
Thanks, Mercy and Jonathan. I think that gives us a good overview of Fratelli Tutti, and I'm going to share a little bit more about how it is directly impacting our work. So on this slide, you can see what is sort of an overview of Bellarmine's social mission. We're active in a lot of different spaces in a lot of different ways. Today, though, we're focusing on this idea of partnership, specifically the partnerships that we've been able to build cross-generationally, partnerships with university students at Xavier and more broadly. We've been working in that arena over a number of years being on the campus, but with our student interns coming on board for the first time this year, it opens up a lot of new avenues for us that we're excited to be going deeper into. So in the next few minutes, you'll hear a couple case examples where Jonathan and Mercy have been active already with our immigration team and our Fresh is Better urban farm initiatives.
So I'm just going to share briefly about what our immigration team does within Bellarmine Chapel. We work closely with refugee families and advocate for local immigration organizations here in Cincinnati. So lately this year, we've been working mainly with Voices of Solidarity with our Undocu Week and our Bellarmine Chapel Share the Journey concert. And I'm just going to briefly explain what we've been doing throughout the year. So this year, Xavier had its second annual Undocu Week, which is a week-long celebration, educating the public and advocating for the immigrant community. Undocu Week engaged students, faculty, and parishioners. We held events like an interfaith vigil and undocumented storytelling. That way both students and parishioners can come and communicate and have discussions. Our next biggest event is a concert that is raising awareness and funding for organizations in Cincinnati that extensively assist migrants, immigrants, and refugees, called the Share the Journey concert. This event for Bellarmine, we collaborated with Xavier University's Voices of Solidarity Immigration Advocacy Club. While the concert was going on, Voices of Solidarity released balloons in remembrance of immigrant lives lost in detention centers or on the journey of asylum. All right, so now I'm just going to kind of jump into a few of the best practices that have worked as a social mission intern connecting the university and parish. The first one is university outreach. So this has included partnering with our Center for Faith and Justice, and then also collaborating with clubs like Voices of Solidarity. The hope is that with groups like Bellarmine's immigration team can partner with Savior organizations like Voices of Solidarity, is for events and then create long-lasting relationships and partnerships. And the hope of having events open to both parishioners and students is that way spaces can be created where reflections and discussions can take place and potentially build these genuine conversations between university and parish. Probably our next and biggest asset to Bellarmine Chapel has been our Instagram and social media. So as a social mission intern, I have created the Instagram and Facebook to reach both younger and older generations, a part of the Xavier community in Bellarmine Parish. Our Instagram account is to reach our younger generation. And I think it's important to note that young people are leaving the church in masses. So creating a platform where the church can connect with young people is vital to creating these partnerships and relationships. As a social mission intern, I also put together our bi-weekly social mission newsletter. This is sent out to our parish via email. But we've started posting it on our Instagram, so that way our younger audience is also updated and can see these events and resources and reach out and get involved into the parish. Our social mission newsletter is combined of a dismantling racism team, immigration team, healthy earth team, and a building bridge team. With all these events and resources, it can be overwhelming sometimes which team you want to get involved with or teams you want to get involved with. Because of this, we started a Google form that parishioners can fill out and find what they are most passionate about and what they'd like to participate in. So this form and our social mission newsletter, our register links, and to donate to our Share the Journey concert are all listed in the link tree on our Instagram bio. Linktree is a way that you can link other websites or resources or anything really into one place, and then you can put this link anywhere that will then link you to other organizations. So this is just a great way to connect all things within the parish and the university. And now I'm going to pass it off to Jonathan so that way he can share more about the Healthy Earth team and what they've been doing.
So one thing that I've really been excited to work on is the Healthy Earth team at Bellarmine Chapel. And there have been two projects that have come out of that. The first is the Fresh is Better Evanston Garden Project. And the second is the Xavier University Student Urban Farm. So the Fresh is Better project is a neighborhood community outreach project, basically getting garden beds for neighbors within the Evanston community. And what I like about this project the most is that it really tears down the walls that Pope Francis is inviting us to tear down. So it's building bridges, and it breaks past not only the generational bubble, because we're interacting with a lot of different ages of families within the neighborhood, but also pushing past the Catholic bubble and working with non-Catholics and working with non-Christians and just working to be stakeholders in this community of Evanston together. And then the other project that we've been working on is the Student Urban Farm run by Xavier students. It was started a couple years ago. It was dropped by another department at Xavier. So Bellarmine Chapel, along with the help of a nonprofit, kind of took it under its wing. And this is a completely student-run project that Bellarmine just kind of offers support and structure to make sure the students running it have the tools necessary to make the urban farm grow and to make it as successful as they want it to be. So the parish, there's also an integration between the students and the parish, because the parish is a market that purchases the food. Students sometimes sell the food after parish masses, and there's connections being made there. And then also the food is being handed off to the parish as a distributor to other local organizations to help with food insecurity, other local pantries. So a couple of the best practices that I think these examples show are really threefold. The first is that coming from an experience working for Bellarmine, I am getting college credit right now for this internship. And I think college credit is a fantastic way to entice students to be even more excited about working in a parish setting. And this could be through a theology department or potentially a social work department if you're specifically focusing on social mission and outreach work. But something that I would advise to be mindful of is specifically academic workload around the internship. So a lot of times with internships, you'll have to write, for credit, you'll have to write certain papers or do other readings outside the class, and working with the faculty and the educators who are in charge of the credit side of the internship and balancing what's the proper work balance between work at your institution and the classwork that they have to do still for credit is something that will benefit all parties involved, is making sure you have a good balance. The next thing I would advise that this example has shown is to really think creatively. So especially about the Evanston Garden Project. So it really focuses on building connections that are kind of outside the typical norm of what Catholic churches work with. So asking yourself the questions of like, who walks the same streets that I do, but that I don't know or don't work with very often, or who's doing similar work, but I still haven't encountered them. Or particularly looking for student organizations. What student organizations are doing the same work that we could partner with, and what connections need to be made? Because the first thing that students are going to be looking for in working and partnering with parishes is making sure that there's a connection already made there. So existing connections are really an important part. And then the last thing that I would say is really focusing on empowering students. So if you're in spaces where students and older parishioners are in some sort of communal meeting type setting, it's really easy for students to kind of notice the age disparity and feel a bit of like an imposter syndrome of like they don't have much to offer, either because they don't have much life experience or because they're working with a parish that they're not super involved in and they kind of feel like an outsider. So working to empower students to make sure that their voices want to be, like you want to hear their voices and they have things to offer that other people can't, is I think a really important thing. The other thing I would say is that empowering the students' own tasks that they're already working on is a great way to build connections and to sort of build partnerships. There are plenty of students who are doing amazing things not related to your parish, but related to the issue that you want to partner with in the future. And it could be as simple as attending the student organization's events or publicizing them to your parish. So that starts to build community, and maybe you get some intermingling between the students and some parishioners just from seeing the events. And then on the other extreme, like working way far out, is what kind of Bellarmine has done with this urban farm, pledging to kind of fund and support student-run projects and empowering them to say, we see this project and we really want to help it grow, and we really think it's important that the students are leading it, and we just want to be there as a structure and a support to make that happen and work with it. So those are three takeaways that I think are hopefully helpful in discerning your own actions.
Thanks, Jonathan and Mercy. As their examples pointed out, these kinds of cross-generational partnerships really have a lot of potential to be mutually beneficial. It is good for the parish, but good for the young people as well. It gives us an opportunity to get to know one another better and to be empowered towards a greater impact on justice in our communities. So now we're going to shift gears again, and it's going to be your turn to try on some of these tools of collaboration. So there's three that we've used in our work that we thought you might be able to use in yours. I'm going to give a brief overview of each, and then you can pause the video and go to the PDF document handout if you want to practice them for yourselves and then just restart the video when you're ready. So the three that we're going to go through are network mapping, communal discernment, paradigm, and digital assessment. On the first one, network mapping, here's some questions that'll really help you get to the core of what networks you are already part of and what networks you might become part of. So for us, being on the university campus, Xavier University is a natural and very proximate partner. We know, though, that many parishes are not on campuses and have to go a little bit further out to partner with young people. So we ask you to think about your unique context and where partnerships might form. I put a small sort of network map on the bottom here, but you could graph out much more than the 4 institutions for intergenerational work. You could graph dozens of institutions if you wanted to. You could also break down institutions. So like here I have Xavier University as a whole, but in our examples that Jonathan and Mercy gave, you heard some pretty concrete partnerships with student groups, partnerships with the Faith and Justice Center. So you could break out your network map to that level of detail if you wanted as well. So the guiding questions we have for you are, what institutions are we already partnered with where we might go deeper? What institutions are we not partnered with, but we ought to be? And that's where you particularly consider the intergenerational connections for justice. Then who do we know or do we have connections with in those institutions? So here you could even write the names along these lines of the people you have as connection points for you with that institution, relationships you have that you can build upon, sort of a map of your whole social capital as a parish. And then the last one, what shared values or goals do we have that we can build upon? Like I said, as to kick off this section, that mutually beneficial aspect is really what makes this work. So think about shared values and goals with these different institutions that can be the grounds, the foundations upon which you build. So now you can pause the video and go to the PDF to work on this piece if you'd like. If you did pause, welcome back. We're moving on to the next section on communal discernment. This here is a model that Deborah Mooney from our Mission and Identity Office at Xavier University put together, but it's based off the model that the Jesuits use in their own communal life, the priests use together. And it's focused really on reaching decisions that are mutually beneficial, that have consolation rather than desolation for the community, that really ground us in the Spirit, the movement of the Spirit towards creating the just world that God imagines for all of us, creating the kingdom of God, creating that culture of encounter that Pope Francis spoke so much about in his encyclical and throughout his papacy. So I invite you to pause again and look through this if you'd like. This is something that you can use in meetings. It is something you can use as a larger institution to engage next steps around cross-generational decision-making. It really has a lot of uses, but it deliberately creates space for the Spirit to act through us. Now in this third one, this is getting to some of what Mercy was talking a lot about in her example, a digital assessment, especially in this time of COVID where so much of life is online. It is important to engage with digital resources to really reach and connect with one another. And this is especially true with young people where they are digital natives. They have so much more awareness of and participation in the digital world. And so many of our parishes are just behind on embracing the technology that's out there. So this is an opportunity to sort of assess where you are and how you can engage digital platforms more effectively to do this cross-generational work for justice. So just a few questions. We've got them again on the PDF where you can scribble down some notes. But what digital platforms are we presently using to increase communications and meet our justice goals? So this is things like Facebook, a newsletter, email, Instagram, down the line, YouTube. What are we currently doing to engage intergenerationally on these platforms? So are we using them in a way that is effective for that kind of intergenerational communication? Are there other platforms that we might use to reach more young people? Biggest point of learning in this for us has been with Instagram. We now have Instagram accounts for several of our departments, and it's been a huge way to connect with young people on the university campus and in our parish more broadly. And then finally, who do we need to collaborate with to improve our digital strategies? You don't have to be the expert in this, but you do need to know who is the expert and invite them in to be part of this ministry. So feel free to pause again and go through that PDF. But otherwise, that's the end of our time together. Here on this last slide, we have some of our contact information. We'd be happy to have you ask us questions, to share more best practices together, to just do some brainstorming on how we do cross-generational partnerships for justice well. We appreciate your time and hope you have a great day. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.